down what the president means by illegal votes and if there has been any evidence at all of voter fraud.
By all accounts, he seems to be implying that the illegal votes are the ones that are coming in for Democrats. I think his argument boils down to the fact that he thinks mail-in ballots are all illegal. They are not illegal. They're absolutely legal. And there's just no evidence of voter fraud in American elections. My colleague Ali Vitale really hit the nail on the head earlier when she said the president slams mail-in voting all year. And then when Democrats choose to mail-in vote more than Republicans, he says, look, it's proof of fraud. I'd say it's proof of politics.
Now, let's also talk about this claim of votes coming in late. This is something the Trump campaign has been challenging in lawsuits in several states. And we should note the laws are different in several states. Now, let's talk Pennsylvania, where mail-in ballots arriving 3 days after Election Day today can still be counted as long as they were postmarked by Election Day, November 3rd. Now, Jane, is there any evidence that any votes submitted or postmarked after November 3rd will be counted and therefore meaning late votes would be counted?
There's no evidence that votes sent after Election Day will be counted. I will say Pennsylvania's law is a little bit sticky. They say without a legible postmark, it is okay, in part because when you have postage paid ballots, the post office often just pushes them through without a postmark. So the Supreme State Court said, look, if it's mailed if it arrives in 3 days, it was mailed before. We're going to presume that it was mailed before because we want fair elections. That's what the state Supreme Court really dug into in their ruling, is that you need to be able to trust that if you put something in the mail, your vote will be counted, not because your mail is slow. And we've seen historic slowdowns in the mail that make it so those late ballots actually mean enfranchising voters who trusted the public works to get their ballot there on time. When it comes to actually late ballots, we actually don't know that there's that many. The Secretary of State in Pennsylvania has said we're talking hundreds, not thousands in counties. 60,000 ballots came in late in the June primary, but we're actually seeing a lot less. And that to me tells me that public education efforts, the mail your ballot on time push that we all saw on Twitter, that actually seems to be working.
Now, there have been reports of post office delays and also votes coming from overseas. Do we know how many of those votes could still be out there?
We really don't. Time will tell. It is worth stressing that, military ballots have an extremely high absentee rejection rate, in part because sometimes they do show up late. So these provisions are important to enfranchise our armed service members who are mailing them from all around the world and should be allowed to have their ballots counted. That deadline in Pennsylvania, I think, is the 10th or the 9th. So it's really just too early to know how many late ballots there could be. Again, none of this really matters unless your margin is in the hundreds. And we don't see an indication that we are going to be in the hundreds. Of course, it's 2020. Anything can happen. But until we know, it's just talk, and it's casting doubt on a system that doesn't deserve it, frankly.
Whew, Jane, that's so true. 2020, anything goes. Now, there have also been allegations from the president and his lawyer that poll watchers have been denied access and that they are not partisan. This was something we were talking quite a bit about before the election, and we saw some pretty dramatic video of some clashes with them as we were watching votes be counted. Explain to us what's happening here.
The president has been filing lawsuits to claim this sort of legal blitz, but legal experts tell me these are kind of smaller lawsuits. Like, where can a poll watcher stand? Are they standing 6 feet away because of COVID, or are they standing 30 feet away because that's where, they were set up by the election workers? They have had a couple legal wins of moving closer to the action, but poll observers really just stand there and watch and make sure everything goes according to plan. There are poll watchers of both sides, and we saw in court yesterday the president's lawyers saying, we need to have our people in there. And the judge looked at him and said, are your people in there? And they said, well, yes, but we want more. We want different. So there's transparency in the system. The system has poll watchers of both sides. They're both in there, and they can fight about where they're going to be, but they have been in there the whole time.
All right, Jane, I think you kind of explained that for us here. But poll watching has been around for a long time. What is the basic job of the poll observers who are in there? And just quickly kind of explain that process and how it works.
I asked an expert about this who used to do this kind of work in the Justice Department. And he said, it's kind of like cataloging airlines coming in and hoping you're going to see a UFO, because you're there for the UFO. But really, you're watching just, paper go by. You're taking notes on everything that happens. This is not a particularly exciting activity. You sort of say, well, these ballots came in, they were challenged. Oh, those were accepted. you're truly cataloging really mechanical parts of elections. People go to satisfy their own interests that the rules are being followed. And for the most part, they are. I mean, occasionally poll watchers see very small administrative failures. That tends to be what your poll watchers will call back to the major party and say, here's what I saw. Very small mechanical failures.
Those UFOs are rare. That's a great analogy. I like that, Jane. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.